If Serral catches you and gets a whiff of what you're doing early, you can fall into a lot of trouble very quickly a lot of the time. So you're right, it could absolutely be a bit of a tough series for Hellraiser. Cats, take us away on some introductions.
Hells yeah, on the top right-hand side for Team Ents, it is the GOAT, Serral. For me, at least.
And down in the bottom left-hand side, we've got the Blue Protoss player, Hellraiser.
Bogdan is his name. Yeah, pretty cool name. And look at that, Bogdan being spicy to start off, but unlucky for him, Serral opened with a pull first and is having none of it. This Overlord will also spot the first pylon, but okay, at least this pylon, it's gonna be a not a cannon rush, which is good news for Hellraiser, as he would have found no hatchery on the low ground, but rather gonna anchor with a very far away cannon to go into most likely something like a Robo or a Stalker Pressure, most likely a Robo.
Yeah, the one thing I usually don't like about this is that you're kind of not putting any pressure on the natural, so usually the Zerg gets a natural, no issue. In this case, it might work out because Serral goes pool first, so then it's a bit further away, so does the pool first help you so much in defending this? Maybe not. Serral gets one of his drones trapped in there. The other drones decide to turn it around. They aren't going to kind of move along with this, so they're going to go back home, start mining, and instantly goes into a Roach Run. I think that's one of the biggest things about a pool first. You can get a Roach Run just so quickly.
Yeah, and that's going to be helpful, but it's also a problem for Serral that he's on 16 workers against the 18 of Hellraiser, and he's going to have less larva to work with than normal, and even cancels his natural expansion to go somewhere else. So he's going to be getting the larva from somewhere else, but he's also not going to be getting that much larva from the main. So Ravagers are going to be the choice from Serral here, but I would say, yeah, this doesn't apply pressure right away to the natural base. It makes it much harder for those drones to actually do damage and stop this from ever happening a little bit further away. So things are looking pretty okay, I think, for Hellraiser so far.
I actually kind of like the hatch on the map because it's a position where obviously Hellraiser can't really fight to deny it. You're guaranteed to keep it up for a while for lava. Yeah. You're mostly only going to be looking for lava. In this case, it also maybe gives you some counterattack potential. And yeah, I kind of like it overall. I think it's not that bad of an idea. I can get behind the plan here from Serral. So yeah, kind of cool. We'll see what comes of it in the end. I mean, the thing is, if you have the natural hatchery right now, it just starts getting cannoned and roboed down, and then, you know, was it worthwhile building it? Probably not. So, kind of like what he's doing, and already going to see the first Ravager coming through and just going to start dialing its way through the cannon, through the pylon, and just going to try and work on those shields to break on out here.
Yeah, Serral's still not even saturated at his main base, though. He is mining a lot of gas. Once this Immortal, and especially a Warp Prism, comes out, then Hellraiser will begin to stabilize here at the front. The shield battery is going to do a great job of potentially healing this pylon. And cannon, will it be in time? Yeah, barely this time around. So again, things not looking too bad for Hellraiser, though now his shield battery has run out of power. He should be able to at least get one Immortal out relatively soon.
Yep, Robo finishing up, and now we're going to see Serral already kind of coming onto it, putting a bit of damage onto that's really focusing the Robo initially. Queens have a transfusion, so can keep these Ravagers alive, as we're now working away at the other battery at the front. So Serral really focusing on just removing the SAG defense that powers up this forward position of Hellraiser. Anything you can do to just push back the control a little bit seems to be Serral's goal right now. He is going to get the Ravagers onto the Robo. Of course, there is batteries in range that can heal that up as well, but with the corrosive files also, it's getting dangerously low, and well, one Ravager does now go down. The Immortal comes out, and he's going to cancel the Ravager morphing. Serral just going to go back to the high ground, and for now, Hellraiser is going to hold his front line.
Yes, indeed. Serral actually making drones off of his proxy hatchery. It is super far away, and the downside of that, while the upside is that it's not going to get cannon rushed, like you said, that he's going to get to keep it. But oh, the Immortal actually getting a little bit dangerously low there. But yeah, the downside of that is it's going to be a far way away for it to reinforce this location on anything like a flank. So I still kind of like Hellraiser's forward position here. Serral does have a lot, and Hellraiser's going to start trying to poke up the ramp. We see that the natural would have been a liability, as Hellraiser would be working on it right now if the units didn't want to fight him. So yeah, I'm not sure who's taking this, but you know, things seems to be working out okay for Hellraiser, who's about to get the second Immortal to start juggling with the Warp Prism.
Yeah, and that's obviously when you can be maybe a bit more aggressive, get a bit further forward. The robo facility's getting low. I was going to say maybe you should invest a battery just healing that back up. And he will do that now to make sure there's some more shields on it. Try and keep it alive as the Queens with the Ravages move down again. And just looking to keep that press back. That Nidus, by the way, off that lair that was building from Serral. There's obviously allows you to a couple of things. Either you can attack into your opponent's base. You can obviously use it to evacuate your main if that becomes a necessity at some stage. So it gives you a lot of flexibility at this stage. And I think that's a pretty cool thing to have against this style of the Protoss, which is obviously really has kind of one thing in mind.
Yeah, and I mean, if you have to recall to defend against the Nidus, which is what Hellraiser will have to do if the Nidus goes up, then you are as good as dead, because then you're forfeiting this forward position. So Serral has to be careful as well. We'll see if Hellraiser will have a small timing window to capitalize, perhaps. The Stalker's already being recalled. So that's a good, very mature choice from Hellraiser, because he's going to leave the two Immortals to juggle. And that means that Serral's also going to struggle to commit here at the front.
That's going to be... I mean, it's going to be tough, though, right? Because it's going to come down to, multitasking. You can see right now, Stella's just going to commit here. And, okay, he's got the Immortals to deal with, but he's going to start doing damage. I mean, he's on his way to killing that Wolf Gate off. Queen goes down as we do see the Queens trying to trade. Ravagers are going to come back home to help push this back, and it's going to be that constant dance at the moment as he kills off his Stalker. Well, Serral's going to push it back to the front. In the end, obviously, he left the front at home, but not before killing off the Cybercore.
Yeah, and the grounds for profit here for the side of Serral is the fact that he has had that extra base running, so he actually has an income advantage, whereas normally Protoss would often have an income advantage at this point if they are containing the Zergon 1 base, or if they have been threatening their natural expansion. So we see now that that situation for Serral has paid off. It was kind of money in the bank. It was a little bit of a risk when he started making those workers, as opposed to breaking this contain. But he has managed to hold down for long enough that this is now becoming very profitable.
Yeah, that base, that Hellraiser, I don't know if he assumes there's a base out there somewhere. I mean, I feel like you've kind of got to at some point.
Yeah.
It's just going completely unpunished, right? So Serral is just starting to run away with this again, having a good work account. He's not worried about mining out of his main. I feel like this has just been a very good systematic defense from Serral, just, one step after one step, just dealing with Hellraiser, putting some pressure on, never really leaving himself open to many attacks. Now he's even got Ling's counter, and he's going to make taking this natural expansion a difficulty.
Yes, indeed. I would love to see the income graph, actually, as I think it'll show that Hellraiser started off with an advantage, and then Serral catches up, yeah, as we see it now on screen, and now he is profiting. So, the longer this game goes, the better it is for Serral. Hellraiser needed to do something with that window where he was ahead economically, and while Serral was investing in those drones, but he wasn't able to. And now Serral with a massive advantage, he just has to make units here. 2 disruptors being made at a time, but against mass Zerglings, I mean, that's probably not gonna pan out too well. These 2 Immortals exposed as well against the Ravagers, and things are falling apart for their Ukrainian.
Kind of felt like maybe one of those Immortals was just going to get back in range. This battery isn't keeping it alive now. Lifts up. Here come the Disruptor shots, and boom, a bunch of Ravagers go down. And that's going to be a double Queen kill as well, as the Serral loses quite a bit back at home. But of course, he's keeping Hellraiser on that one base, knowing that he is on his own 2 bases, and that this over time is going to work out for him. He's even going to take that 3rd hatchery on that kind of half base, but it is a half base with a rich recipe in gas. And of course, for your gas income, when you're playing on such a low kind of work count, only having to commit half the drones to a gas for the same amount of value is amazing.
Amazing indeed. I love the expansion from Hellraiser as well. I really wish that these 2 Disruptors had just gone for that hidden base of Serral to do exactly what he's doing at the main. So that works as well. But now Serral breaching into the main of Hellraiser. There's not much to speak of here. Might need to use an extra recall here if he even has it. I'm trying to check. 49 energy, 50, and there's no recall. There it is.
There is not just yet. Finally, it's going to come down, and maybe just a bit too late. Lots of Lings here. The Queens are here as well. Now you got to go full on defense mode, which means Serral can put everything into attacking. He's already killed off, 14 probes as I start talking, and now it's up to 20. And that's just going to continue as he loses one of the Immortals, and it does just seem as though this is probably just going to be too much from Serral. Hellraiser made it kind of crazy. We said that's what you kind of got to do to beat Serral, but Serral just kind of seemed to know what to do, right? He's thought through it ahead of time. He knew what his response wanted to be, and it was just spot on, right? Was there really a point where Serral felt as though he was in major trouble? I feel like the part I was most worried for Serral was like when the disruptors were like hitting the Ravagers and the Queens. And that was what, a minute ago? To me, the game was already decided, like, 2 or 3 minutes before that. So the most hopeful part for Hellraiser came when the game was already done, probably. That's obviously just not good enough. And I think this is why we don't really see these robo proxies anymore. There was a time where they dominated the metacats, and nowadays they're just a very rare sight.
Yeah, at the same time, it's easy to feel in this kind of really chaotic game to not give credit to your opponent, which is, I mean, obviously a mistake against Serral, to think, okay, he's on one base. And, he wasn't scouting, but I feel like if he had set one Zealot to that other base at any point in the game, and ideally earlier, right? Like, I think that he would have stood a chance. But it's the fact that Serral gets away with making workers on an undefended base that's, like he really couldn't do anything if Hellraiser sent one Zealot, right? So I think that if Hellraiser caught wind of that and invested into shutting down that base, then he could continue to play in the way that he was playing and continue to try and trade until disruptors. And then when the disruptors hit, we would have been looking at a Hellraiser that just got game-winning hits instead of, oh, maybe he stands a chance now, right?
Yeah, no, definitely true. No, I'm with you. It's one of those things that's difficult to play against Serral for, because he doesn't always have the exact same response to what you're doing every single time. And like I say, especially when you get that Nidus up, it gives you options. Like, did he hard commit to it? Not really, but he did enough with it. And like I say, like, you could have maybe played it a different way where you kind of let up the main, you go elsewhere. Those are the sort of scenarios where I feel like Serral just, almost feels like he's had like 10 more years to play the game than other players, because he just has all of the different routes so well figured out in his mind.
Yeah, and I mean, he's also like, he has 3 Ravagers, but they're working over time. They're working on their cooldowns, right, for those corrosive biles. And he wasn't being shy to bile the Robo, which is a long-term game if you are Serral, but it also forces those extra static defenses if you're Hellraiser. So it's very difficult for Hellraiser to really allocate resources outside of his front contain, because if Serral is making units instead of drones, he could get broken at any point as well. So yeah, there's definitely mind games and all sorts of things going on in that game. And surely this game will have to be something like that on the side of this man who's spawning in the bottom left-hand side. It is Hellraiser.
And looking to make sure he keeps his clean sheet alive, making sure he doesn't lose any maps in this tournament. It is Serral in the upper right.
All right, let's see what Hellraiser has up his sleeve this time, Wardy. What are you thinking? What should he do?
I imagine it's going to be Stargate focused. Maybe you go like Stargate into a Twilight. I think just a straight up Twilight is something Serral can scout and prepare for. Maybe Stargate into Twilight, because Hellraiser is the kind of guy to sometimes add on all those Stargates, similar to Goblin, right? Where, what he tried to do in Game 2 of his series against Raynor, he went Stargate into that Twilight and he went for charge. I like the idea of something like that, because Hellraiser, Goblin, these are the kind of players who love their Stargate styles, and that makes it so much trickier when they do switch away from it after showing it initially.
Yes, indeed. And I think it was Hellraiser who also had a similar game, at least conceptually, but in a PvP as the Goblin versus Raynor game, where he just kind of maxed out on 3 bases worth of Stargate units. That is something that is more difficult to do, I think, in PvC than it is in PvP, but we almost saw it work today, and it was on this very map, so maybe Hellraiser can do something to that extent.
Yeah, maybe. It would be kind of cool to see if he can. I actually kind of, mentioning PvP, love the way that Hellraiser played PvP for a while with like the mass gate. He basically played like mass gateway units and just like mass expands and just splitting armies everywhere. It really shows what Hellraiser can do as a player. It's just so hard to do something or find something like that in PvZ, It feels like you're, I don't want to say restricted, but like the matchup really does a lot of the time come down to these Stargate-focused openers.
Yes, indeed. And the Stargate is exactly what we're going to get. The cool thing, I think, about Stargates is that it is still, you see a Stargate and you still don't know what it is, right? Like, it could be the mass Phoenixes that we saw earlier. It could be Void Ray opening into just macro, like we have also seen a lot of players do. It could just be mass Void Rays or continuous Void Rays, or even mass Oracles. Like, it can be, and all of those things require slightly different approaches, though the Queen is most likely the most central element. And now Serral is gonna catch wind of the Stargate, so most likely to see a bunch of queens produced.
Most likely Void Ray production comes on through. Obviously, Serral gets to see not just Stargate, but the fact it's a Void Ray, so you really do get full information with that little scout, at least for now. But of course, then the idea is the Void Ray gets rid of that Overlord, and then you can't scout again, with the Overlord at least, as to what the follow-up is. So that's when a switch would happen, if we're going to see a switch here from Hellraiser. Not saying that we necessarily are, but yeah, if you're going to change it up, that would be the time to do so as you go and chase that Overlord down. And there's a second Stargate, so there's going to be commitment into Void Rays, it seems, Cats.
Yes, indeed. And I can get behind that. It's pretty cool. Serral already evacuating his extra Overlord out on the map. It got to scout the bottom right-hand side of it, so he knows that there's not any proxies there, though that's kind of useless information, redundant at this point, as he knows that there was a Void Ray opening. Voider will surely find this Overlord on the retreat. And then we are going to see Hellraiser, like you said, mass-producing most likely Void Rays, and maybe looking for a quick pick-off onto a hatchery, similar to what we saw Goblin do, only it's going to be a little bit faster for Hellraiser, who did not stop to make something like an Oracle or a random Phoenix in between.
Yep, absolutely. It's just going to be seen. +1 air weapons is going to start up immediately on that side, but core, these Lings just continue to hunt down these poor little Adepts, and this one will get the shade all the way back to the natural, where there's a Queen and Lings waiting for it as well. Roach Roaring drops down from Serral. And again, just right now, still trying to figure out exactly what this next step is, and waiting to see how exactly he's going to also approach this mid-game, Cats, which should be pretty fun.
Yes, indeed. We see the third, not particularly early relative to what it could have been if there was only a single Void Ray to take it. But I can get behind it, and it looks like from that +1 attack for the air units as well, that Hellraiser is not planning on stopping or slowing down on that front. He's going to be making probably a transition into carriers or something of the like soon, but I would love to see an attempt at a snipe with this Void Rays while he has them. Now, I wonder if that +1, because it was after he started the Void Ray production, if it's going to kick in time for his attack. I think it might, right? I think it will.
Yeah, it's going to be kind of close. I guess we'll find out as we just see Serral making his Queens get to the center here. Going to start taking on the Void Ray, and that's a lot of damage, right? I mean, shield's gone, half its HP gone, and that's just the sort of thing that weakens up those defenses if Hellraiser needs them a bit further down the line, or maybe that's the Void Ray that gets picked off while trying to harass somewhere else.
Yeah, and another great scout from Serral. I'm not even sure where that Overlord came from, but it made it there. Does he have Overlord speed? I didn't see how fast it was. And I see no other Overlords moving.
It's not Overlord speed.
Wow, so it just walked all the way there. Wow, I mean, the foresight for Serral to bring back an Overlord all the way there and suicided. And now he knows that it's mass Void Rays, right? And we see he hasn't really responded, or I guess he maybe feels like Hydras is the way that he will respond, and his Queens are actually going to move to kind of protect a hatchery. Also, look at the mini-map. Serral doesn't have Overlords, but he has Lings all over the place so that he will spot the Void Rays moving, and so that he can continue to reposition his Queens accordingly.
I might be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure he also just cancelled Groove Spines to go for the Hydra speed instead, and that might also just be I don't want to be caught out of position. I want to have the mobility on my Hydras ASAP to deal with any Void Ray harassment, just get into position, and he's going to value that over the extra range initially, which usually the Hydra speed means you're going to be a bit more aggressive, whereas the Hydra range usually means a bit more defensive. But in this case, with the way the Void Rays move around, that speed really can be very valuable to have early.
Yeah, and all the Queens are going to be condensed in the same location. Hellraiser, unlucky for himself, is scooting around on the side of creep that is, it gives Serral full vision of his movement. So Serral can adapt to that and relocate the Queens where they need to be. So there's always a Queen committee here waiting for this Void Race, and they're just not going to be able to find anything.
Yeah, really good defense, just really solidified all the way around. And okay, you dive in for a Spore Crawler, it's already pulling back, and the Queens are there to push the Void Rays away. So again, defense is absolutely on point and beyond from Serral. He is really not allowing anything to happen to his bases.
Yeah, and it's gonna get a little bit dangerous for Hellraiser as well. He's gonna need carriers out by the time these Hydras arrive. The Mothership could be amazing as a defensive tool as well. He's getting Flux Veins, I believe, for those Void Rays so that he is able to maneuver a little bit easier and maybe find that hatchery pickoff that he hasn't been able to find so far. But I mean, it looks like Serral is gearing up for a Hydra Bane attack, potentially with Queens, maybe a Nidus reinforcement. Or no, it looks like he's just going to walk him across the map. And this is going to be very difficult, I think, for Hellraiser to hold. He has no robo units. He has no carriers, which would be great against Hydras. And instead, he has Void Rays, which are weak against every unit that Serral has.
Yep,
that Hellraiser has. Oh, no,
yeah, I'm not really super confident right here. Let's see what happens. We're going to be moving on in. I mean, these Hydras are going to walk past the Voids initially, so they take quite a lot of damage to begin with, but so many of these batteries and cannons just aren't ready yet. And you've got the Banes just to help bust down the initial kind of front line, and even more Banes coming through, and maybe now they can just aim for the mineral line as well, aim for some of those probes. This Queen Hydra force doesn't really seem like it's going anywhere, cats, and whatever the plan was here from Hellraiser, he's just not had the time to set it up at all, or maybe was relying on the Void Rays doing some more damage, keeping Serral pinned back a bit more, because the defense was just so good from Serral. It's very possible that this was just a case of, hey, like, he's just got way more than I expected him to have, because he really just took no damage at all from me early.
It's such an elegant transition as well, right? Because he's using all of his defense also on offense, so he shuts down the Void Rays perfectly with taking 0 damage, didn't lose a single unit to them. And now he has, I mean, multiple counters to these Void Rays. There's only one Overseer, so maybe Hellraiser can do something like dive on top of it. Tempests are going to be a little bit too late. And Serral will clean up with a very easy and nice